For the Sake of My Children, a novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel narrates the life story of an Australian girl who fell in love with a Saudi man. Then she converted to Islam, married her Arab lover, and traveled with him to the Islamic world. This book is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on a true love affair between a former Christian girl and a Muslim immigrant. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Therefore, any resemblance to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 18. The Islamic Marriage of a Child Bride. It is difficult to know why it happened at the same time to one of her 7 children on the 2 nights of the rape of the Australian mother Irshad in the village by the evil chief. Whether it was just a coincidence or was predetermined by God before the foundation of the world. Muslims believe that everything good or bad that happens in a person's life is already decided and written by God before he was created and born. For example, the murderer, the thief, the adulterer, and the adulteress kills, steals, and commits adultery because God predestined, commanded, and ordained for him or her to do those evils before he created them. Therefore, Muslims consider everything they do, good or bad, as their kismet or share in life, which was written to them by Allah, and they could not avoid doing the will of God. This Islamic belief is worse than the teachings of the law of karma in Hinduism, which states that the rich man and the poor man reap the fruits of their deeds in their past lives, whether they are good or bad. The rich man is wealthy because of his good karma in his previous life, and the poor is destitute due to his evil deeds in his former life. Simply put, a homeless Hindu beggar dying of starvation on the streets of Bombay could be the German tyrant Adolf Hitler in Berlin City in his previous life. It so happened that at the same time that the Australian Muslim widow Irshad was fighting the human sex predator, the chief of Saraf al-Banat village, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed, who tried to rape her in his residence, her minor first daughter, Aisha al-Shamari, was going through the same bitter experience of a brutal rape by her guardian, Mullah Sheikh Muhammad Abu Hamid. Once the Australian widow left the Mujahideen camps and entrusted the custody of her 7 children to her late husband Zamir, the marriage of her first daughter was arranged to the same old man who was supposed to protect and care for her as a guardian. He was supposed to treat her and served her as his adopted granddaughter. First, the religious leader Mullah Abu Hamid knows that there is no adoption in Islam because the Quran forbids adoption. When the Prophet saw the wife of his adopted son, Zayd ibn Muhammad, who was called Zainab bint Jahash, she was half nude, that is, almost naked in her tent, and his penis was erected because he lusted after her. Therefore, the Quran annulled adoption. Then God divorced Zayd's wife from him and commanded his beloved and preferred prophet over all other prophets and messengers, Muhammad, to take the beautiful and sexy daughter-in-law, Zainab, to bed and fuck her in a halal manner. Accordingly, the old geezer Sheikh Muhammad Abu Hamid did not consider that the children of the Australian white widow were his adoptive children, and thus permitted himself to marry her minor virgin firstborn daughter. Aisha is a few months a little more than 10 years old, while her alleged legal Muslim husband is an elderly man of 72 years of age with other 3 Muslim wives, sons, daughters, and a large number of grandchildren. Although Aisha is just a child, her Australian mother Irshad taught her that a girl will not be ready for marriage until she reaches the stage of mental maturity and physical puberty at the age of 18. At that age, she will reach the stage of womanhood, and this is the state of being a mature woman physically and mentally sane. Therefore, it is not permissible to consider the marriage of a minor girl until after she reaches the age of 18 years or over, or when she reaches the official age of physical, mental, and psychological maturity and assumes legal responsibility. When Aisha learned that the mullah took advantage of her mother's absence and married her, she decided not to let him touch her body, and in her heart decided to kill him if he tried to rape her. But Mullah Muhammad Abu Hamid is eviler and more dangerous man than the notorious womanizer, the village chief, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed. He is a trained terrorist and has learned how to handle his victim. On the same day on which he performed his marriage to her in the mosque, Al-Mullah decided to complete his marriage to his child bride, Aisha Mustafa al-Shamari. The dirty old man decided to rape the 10-year-old underage girl under the pretext of the Islamic halal marriage of female children based on the example of the Prophet Muhammad with his child bride Aisha, who was 6 years old when he married her and became 9 when he began to rape her. Before consummating his marriage with his child's fourth wife, the old hag groom sent some elderly Afghani women for his new bride, and these sorcerers informed the little girl that she had married. According to the Holy Quran of God and the blessed Sunnah of his messenger, their blessed leader, Mullah Muhammad Abu Hamid. Aisha got angry and told them that no one has the right to marry her until she is 18 years old, and she must choose who she wants to marry. The old women mocked the child Aisha and told her that each of them got married before she was 10 years old. Therefore, these old Afghani women laughed at her objection. They also considered that her desire to fall in love and choose her own life partner in Afghanistan was just a daydream of a foolish little girl like herself. They also told her that no Muslim woman, young or underage, can decide when and whom she marries. Her father is the one who is given the right to marry her by the law of God and his prophet to any man, whether he was young or old, whom he chose from among men. Moreover, they cited the example of the Prophet Muhammad, which is always cited by Muslims to justify the sexual abuse of female children. The aged woman said that the infallible Prophet of God married his third wife, Aisha, when she was 6 years old and had sex with her when she was 9. In the middle of the night, the bride-to-be, Aisha, was forced to wake up when her groom, Mullah Abu Hamid, attempted to consummate his marriage to her. She opened her eyes, got to her feet, and looked around. Her eyes saw the old man standing in front of her like a red devil. The first thing that crossed her mind was to kill him on the spot before he could touch her. The old hag man with a big smile on his bearded face started slowly walking towards her. Aisha remained standing in her place, looking at him with eyes full of fear. As soon as he was within her reach, her hands caught his throat. Although she is only a 10-year-old girl, Aisha has the body of a 14-year-old girl and extraordinarily strong hands. The old man struggled to free his throat, but his efforts were in vain. Aisha continued to grip the old goat's throat. He started kicking and hitting her body, but she wouldn't let go of his throat. The struggle continued until they both fell to the ground inside the tent. The old man fell, and she was on top of him. His struggle stopped and his eyes became wide open. Aisha probably needed a few minutes to turn the old man into a dead body under her body, but suddenly a violent blow fell on her head. It was such a strong blow that it rendered her unconscious. When her hands released his throat, the old man pushed her unconscious body and rose to his feet. Then the old Sheikh Muhammad Abu Hamid said with a panting voice like the howling of an ogre, "Thank you, Abu Huraira." A big man who hit the little bride Aisha with his stick said, "I have already warned you, our mullah, to be careful of the daughter of a foreign white woman, born and raised as a Christian infidel, but you did not heed my advice. She would have strangled you, had I not gone out quickly and hit her on the head with my crutch. All women are damned and similar in their cunning. We have been warned by the Holy Quran of their guile and deception. She's not up for anything except for fucking her pussy in bed and having kids. At least I followed your advice, Abu Huraira, and kept you hidden under her bed. Our honorable Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Abu Hamid, what should be done now? Go and get the maid, Barrera." The large man left the room and returned a few minutes later, followed by a woman. She is a Pakistani woman. As soon as she saw the unconscious little girl, she went to her. Mullah Muhammad Abu Hamid said, "Wait a moment, Barrera. Before you treat her, you must undress her completely." The maid followed the instructions without asking any questions and then stripped the body of the child, Aisha, of all her clothes, even her small underwear. After that, Mullah Muhammad whispered a few words into the ears of Abu Huraira. In response, the servant took Aisha's clothes, hid them in a closet, and pulled out a long rope. Then he took Aisha's hands and brought them behind her back and tied them together. Afterward, he picked up her unconscious naked body and laid it on the bed. Then he pinned her legs tightly to the edge of the bed. After that, he crept under the bed and hid as before. Then the old man said, "Now, Barira, go to her and revive her." It took the maid a few minutes to revive the body of the unconscious child, Aisha. The maid used chili water to rejuvenate the unconscious body of Irshad's minor child. When Aisha opened her eyes, she saw the maid smiling and greeting her. And she did neither greeted her nor she did smile at her. Her head is still heavy, and it hurts because of the heavy blow. She then saw the sinister old man standing behind the maid with an extremely angry face. Fear filled her heart again when she realized he was still alive. She remembered that she had killed him or was about to kill him. "Thank you, my maid, Barira, you may leave now." The Pakistani maid immediately left the tent. The old man looked at Aisha's naked body with eyes full of lust. She looked at him with eyes filled with fear and anger. Then she saw him begin to undress piece by piece until he was completely naked. She was disgusted to see such a terrifying scene. The old man came and sat beside her in the bed. She tried to get up and choke his neck again, but discovered that she had both hands on her back. She struggled to bring them in front of her, but she couldn't. She realized that they were tied together. Then she tried to use her legs to hit him in the ugly face, but she couldn't either. She understood that he had also tied her legs. She began shaking her naked, sweaty body violently to free her hands and feet. But all her efforts were in vain. After some time, she became exhausted. Her body is full of sweat. She fell on her back. Her eyes are looking everywhere for escape. The naked old man kept sitting near her in the same bed. She tried again to free herself, but she couldn't. The dirty old man waited until her strength of resistance was gone. Then he extended his hand and placed it on her naked body. It felt as if an eagle's claws had sunk into her tender body. When he pressed against her flesh, it felt as if he was squeezing blood out of it. This act gave her an unbelievably bad feeling that turned into excruciating pain. Then she felt his other hand grab her face, which made her feel unbearable pain too. Her body shrank. After that, she saw his face coming close to hers to kiss her. She felt as if a venomous snake were about to bite her. Therefore, she started to swing her head sideways. Despite this, the old ogre began kissing her neck, shoulders, and cheeks. The little girl, Aisha, felt as if a raging dog was licking and biting her body. Then she felt the weight of his fleshless skeleton mount above her. When he was sure she couldn't resist anymore, he grabbed her head and pressed it against the pillow. The child bride, Aisha, became motionless. She wishes the roof would fall on them and kill them before the evil mullah could rape her. When he realized that she could no longer swing her head, the old man lustfully looked at her lips. Then he brought his filthy-smelling mouth, kissed her cheek, and licked her forehead with his tongue. Then he moved his thin lips to hers. As soon as his lips touched her mouth, she bit them. It was such a strong bite that the old man felt as though her teeth were like sharp nails that were dug inside his thin lips. She kept biting them because she knew this was her last weapon of defense. The old man struggled to free his lips from her sharp teeth, but he couldn't. He scratched her cheeks and pulled her hair, but she did not leave his lips. Every effort on his part increases his pain. He wanted to part his lips so that he would open his vile mouth and summon his bodyguard, Abu Huraira. Aisha kept biting his lips and then made him mouthless. The old groom fears that his child bride will bite him to death, so he starts kicking his legs like a raging donkey dying of an incurable disease. Repeated kicking caused Abu Huraira to come out of hiding. When the servant looked at the bed, he saw his master, the aged groom, Mullah Muhammad Abu Hamid, in a state of complete utter defeat. The child bride, Aisha, bites the elderly groom, Muhammad, as if she were a hungry child, grabbing her mother's breast and beginning to suck milk from it. But the evil old man, Muhammad, felt her like a vampire sucking blood from his mouth. As a result, the terrorist Abu Huraira hit the child bride on the head again with his big stick. Due to that powerful strike, the child, Aisha, fainted again. Although the lips of the pedophile Muhammad were freed, he could not move. Thus, Abu Huraira lifted him from the bed and stretched his body to the floor. After that, he ran outside and called the maid. When the maid Barira came, she was shocked to see the naked old man lying half dead on the floor with his lips bleeding profusely. Then the maidservants saw the child bride Aisha lying on the bed naked with her mouth full of blood. She thought that Abu Huraira killed the small wife in revenge for his wounded master. Barira shouted, "Did you kill her? She is not dead yet. She is the one who almost killed Mullah Muhammad Abu Hamid with her sharp teeth, had I not saved him from her deadly bite at the right time. She is a small white witch like her infidel Christian mother who left her and fled to her country, Australia." Ignoring his words, the maid knelt on the old man's body and began to treat his bleeding lips. He is trembling, groaning, and his bleeding mouth gnashing loudly like a cannibal munching on the flesh of a human being. The pain increased when the maid touched his bitten lips. Then she put a big bandage over his lips. The old man looked horrific with that kind of creepy mouth, as if he were wearing a scary Halloween mask. Then Abu Huraira spread a large white bed sheet over his master's naked body, making it look like a corpse prepared for its funeral. The Pakistani maid, Barira, took pity on the child bride, Aisha, when she saw her still unconscious while she was naked and tied to the bed. She took another bed sheet and covered her naked body. Then she treated her with care and compassion. She wished that the old man and his bodyguard would not hit the innocent child bride again. When Aisha regained consciousness, she deliberately gave her some sleeping pills. Then she told the old bridegroom and his servant that the underage bride was not in good condition, and therefore it was not advisable for her husband to try to have sex with her. She said that she might die if the mullah tried again to sleep with her because she was a virgin and circumcised Muslim girl who has a small, stitched pussy which was zipped, zapped, and securely closed up by female genital mutilation. The two evil men believed the maid and allowed the child bride to sleep inside the tent all that night. When she woke up the next morning, the child bride, Aisha, thought she had had a bad nightmare. Then she remembered her struggling and suffering with the dirty old man who tried to rape her twice. When she looked around the tent, she knew this was a real horror. She remembered that the old man made a second attempt to rape her, but she bit his lips. Aisha also remembered that it was a very painful bite and most likely he died or got sick. In either case, he might have been hospitalized or buried in a grave. She wished the second possibility had happened to him. After that, she felt very hungry and thirsty. Aisha knew that she had not eaten or drunk anything since she learned through the old Afghan women that she had become the fourth wife of the old mullah, Sheikh Muhammad Abu Hamid, whom she looked up to as a father and guardian for her and her siblings. She thought she was still naked and tied to the bed. She decided to release herself and run away before the old man came again. She pulled her right leg violently. She was surprised when her leg moved freely. She tried her left leg and her hands and realized she was no longer bound. She sat on the bed and looked at her body. The child bride Aisha found herself dressed up and not naked. She got to her feet and headed towards the mirror. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw that a beautiful dress had been put on her. Her hair is well combed. There are new shoes on her feet. Despite this, Aisha felt very weak and tired. Her thoughts turned to her hunger and thirst. She felt that she must eat and drink something before the old man came back. She knows that she needs her strength to fight him in case he tries to abuse her again and rape her under the pretext of Islamic lawful child marriage. She waited for a long time for someone to come, but no one came to her. Finally, she began to think that the old man was deliberately starving her to reduce her strength. When night came, she became very weak and tired. And so, she slept on the bed. When she woke up again, it was morning time. She tried to sit down, but she couldn't. Her body was trembling with fever. She knew she was sick. She tried again to get up, but she couldn't. She wanted to scream for help, but her voice failed her. When she looked around the tent, she couldn't clearly see the things in front of her eyes. She's breathing hard now. Aisha felt she was dying. This feeling caused her to panic, thus she gathered her remaining strength and stood on her trembling feet. Her heart was beating fast, and her head was aching badly. She saw that everything around her was moving quickly. She lost control and fell to the ground. She sustained injuries due to the fall. She lost consciousness for a while. She remained comatose. After a while, she regained consciousness. She gathered her strength again and crawled on her knees towards the bed. When she got to bed, she pushed her body up with great difficulty. Her body was now half lying on the bed and the other half lying on the floor. In this pathetic situation, the little girl Aisha remained for a long time. She is no longer aware of herself. The third night came and went, but it eluded her because of her miserable state. On the fourth day, while the child bride Aisha was lying on the bed half conscious and half dead, the pedophile Muhammad, who loves to have sex with small female children, returned. His lips were still wrapped in bandages. He looked fresh and strong. He's back on his own. He sat next to the little girl Aisha. He placed his right hand on her body and began to feel her lustfully. His animal lust blinded his eyes and prevented him from seeing the condition of the innocent minor girl as she was dying due to severe beatings and deliberate starvation. He slowly rotated her body until it was completely rotated. Then he began to touch her shoulders, cheeks, lips, and legs with lust. When he made sure that she was unaware of his touch, he began to undress her. After that, he took off the wolf's clothes and rode over her dying body. By rubbing and stroking her body, the innocent child regained half of her consciousness. Although she opened her eyes and saw the old man in a dull black silhouette, she still could not move a limb on her weak body. She felt his skeleton as if an old hedgehog were moving on her body. His bones sink into her flesh like sharp thorns. His toothless mouth, from which a stench emanated, approached her like a venomous serpent. Then he started sucking and licking her lips like a hungry dog. This caused her an ugly feeling that made her vomit. As she vomited, she felt old, rusty metal forcing itself into her tiny vagina. This made the child bride, Aisha, feel unbearable pain, as if Muhammad were cutting her in two halves with a saw. Due to female genital mutilation that made the opening of her vagina smaller than the eye of a needle, the innocent child was subjected to much unbearable psychological torture and physical pain before the evil mullah could penetrate her. She wanted to cry from the unbearable pain she felt in her vagina, but her voice let her down because of her parched throat with thirst and her empty stomach from starvation. Her tears started running like hot acid water down her cheeks as the old man brutally raped her. Before he could fully penetrate her tiny vagina, the child bride, Aisha, lost consciousness and fell into a deep coma. Chapter 19. She is cast inside awful scary dungeon. The Afghan police took the so-called murderous white bitch, the evil witch, and the unclean Christian infidel, the Australian widow Ershad, from the village inhabited by demons of rape and death to the city of Kandahar and detained her in a confinement of dark room. When the suspected woman, Irshad al-Shamari, entered the darkened room, she could not see anything around her. Her eyes are not yet used to seeing in the dark. However, her other senses gave her an idea of what was inside that dark room. First, her nose transmitted to her the most unpleasant odor she had ever inhaled in her life. It is a combination of the stench of urine, feces, stool, vomiting, sweating, and bad breath. Her stomach reacted immediately, and she vomited everything she ate in the house of her rapist in the village of Sharif al-Banat. When there was nothing left in her stomach to vomit, she began to feel nauseous. After that, her ears began to hear snoring, moaning, crying, and gnashing of teeth. Then her innate intelligence revealed to her that there were some living beings who shared the dark place where she had been cast. But whether they were people, animals, or ghosts, she couldn't tell. To protect herself from those invisible creatures, Irshad remained motionless. After some time, tired and weak, she sat down slowly and carefully. Then she folded her legs together. She hesitated to stretch her legs and touch one of the inmates of that dark cell for fear of one of the ghosts feeling humiliated, attacking her, killing her, and then eating her raw flesh like a cannibal. Then she took out her handkerchief and put it in her nose and mouth to protect herself from this deadly pestilence of the pungent smell. Irshad sat on her feet and hugged her legs for a long time. Her face rests on her knees. Of course, such a situation is not comfortable for her. Whenever she felt pain in her feet or legs, she stood for a while and then sat down. She understood that she had to spend her first night in that dark room, standing and sitting. However, her physical pain is nothing compared to the psychological torture she has been subjected to since her arrest in the village. She still did not fully believe that she had been saved from those barbarians who wanted to kill her for having done no crime other than to protect herself from being raped by that evil chief. Irshad's mind kept remembering those 2 terrifying nights she spent fighting against that terrorist human beast. Those painful memories kept popping up over and over on her mind screen like a horror movie. Even her fight with her captors inside the shrine wasn't so terrible compared to her fight with that evil womanizer. Another thing also tormented the mind of the Australian widow, fearing that she would be sentenced to death for killing Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed, the head of the village. What will happen to her 7 children if she is executed? All these thoughts have been tormenting her mind and heart ever since she was rescued by the police and placed under arrest. The policeman gave her an old woman's Islamic dress and ordered her to clothe and hide her nakedness, because she was completely naked when they rescued her from her assailants. The Australian woman was placed in that darkened room at midnight. She spent the first 3 hours struggling with her physical and psychological torture. She still has 3 hours before dawn breaks. She began to fall asleep due to her lack of sleep during those painful nights spent in the dark shrine and residence of the evil village chief. She tried hard to resist falling asleep. Irshad is afraid of the dire consequences of sleeping in such a dark room. However, she was overcome by drowsiness and physical fatigue. She was dozing off, but kept waking up in a growl now and then. At around 6 o'clock in the morning, the imprisoned widowed Australian woman woke up from her painful sleep. She opened her eyes wide enough to see where she was being held and who was with her. When she saw the occupants of that dark room, she wished that they were stray animals, mad people, or ghosts, and not ordinary humans like herself. They do not differ much in their outward appearance from animals and beasts. Their faces, eyes, and bodies have not been washed and are full of dirt, sweat, and mud. Their eyes are yellow in color, and their hairs have not been combed properly. Their clothes are also full of dirt and torn. Some of them are wearing dirty rags. All these creatures are women. The pretty blonde Australian woman saw herself as a colorful butterfly or a white lotus flower that had suddenly grown in the midst of mud and dirt. Early morning sunshine revealed her horrible face. Irshad became so terrified by their miserable circumstances. As she looked at them in fear and terror, she saw that some of them were doing incredible things before her eyes that only stray animals can do in the open. Some of them urinated, others vomited, and some did unspeakably horribly dirty things. The Australian foreign woman, Irshad, closed her eyes and started crying. She couldn't believe that humans would degrade to such a low level. She wished she had died and gone instead of being imprisoned in such a filthy place. Hours passed one after another like centuries. Morning came and went, and noon came dragging its tail behind it. Noontime is the worst time of the day. The cell had no windows. Therefore, it is getting hotter and hotter as the noon continues to grow. The stench intensified terribly. Hell's inmates sweat terribly. Their dirty bodies emit an odor similar to that of decomposing corpses of unburied dead people. In such miserable conditions, the white woman remained imprisoned and spent the morning, noon, and evening. The night is much better for her than the day. For the darkness of the night hid from her eyes the wretched faces of the captive women. At around 4 p.m., the Australian widow, Irshad Al-Shamari, began to feel the hunger pangs. Her hunger made her notice some strange phenomena of the women of hell. Until she became very hungry, Irshad never saw any of the Inferno's inmates eat food or drink water. It seems not one of the inhabitants of hell has gone hungry or thirsty since the time the Australian woman was thrown in when she was half dead. Therefore, she is amazed at their ability to survive without those important necessities of human existence. And Irshad wondered if these women had been put into that dark, bottomless pit to die of hunger and thirst. Her suspicions are confirmed by the faces stricken with hunger and thirst for each other. But she would rather die of starvation than eat or drink in such a filthy place, dirtier than any public toilet in the densely populated city of Kandahar. Another strange phenomenon of the place of perdition was noticed by the white foreign detainee concerning the new arrivals. Ever since she awoke from her painful sleep, she had now and then seen at least 2 or 3 new arrivals dragged half dead by the policewomen and dumped into the place of agony and torment. Therefore, when the sun went down that day, the dark room was so full that there was no place left for the newcomers to sit on. The Australian woman worries about what will happen if this boredom continues for another 24 hours. She was forced to her feet a long time ago because there was nowhere left to sit. Some of the new arrivals were severely beaten on the faces by female Afghan police officers and had their clothes torn off. Some of them were unable to walk on their feet, so they were dragged like tree trunks by the policewomen and thrown into the abyss. Some have open wounds and profuse bleeding, some are dying, some are dead and gone forever. The white woman was shocked to see such seriously injured female detainees not being sent to the hospital, but instead being thrown into the overcrowded women's lockup. Even her body is full of cuts and bruises from her deadly fights with her rapist and the brutal beatings of those who wanted to stone her to death. At 7 p.m., the Australian detainee saw 4 policewomen standing in front of the door of the dark room. One of them produced a large key and opened the door to the bottomless pit. Then she saw 4 large female policewomen making their way. By that time, the darkened room was filled to the limit. To allow the huge policewomen to enter, the inhabitants of the Black Chasm had to band together. These detainees, like the white Australian woman who happened to be near the wall, were crushed against the concrete wall. The widowed woman, Irshad, is breathing heavily. Her feet were lifted off the ground against her will. One of the 4 policewomen holds a list of names in her hand. She started reading aloud the names from her list. Every name called was asked to come out. The white foreign woman wished her name would be on the list, for she thought that wherever they would take them or whatever they would do to them, it would be less cruel than spending another night in such a filthy place. The policewoman kept reading her list until she came to Irshad's name. "Yes, ma'am," shouted the Australian detainee Irshad Al-Shamari. "Come here," another policewoman shouted. Irshad made her way with great difficulty. While she was leaving, she heard another policewoman shouting at her, saying, "Wait a moment." Irshad stopped and turned her face slowly towards the 4 policewomen. When she stood in front of them and took a closer look at their faces and bodies, she thought they were men in women's clothing. Irshad has never seen women like those who look like men. The 4 giant women have big faces, big noses, big ears, big mouths, big lips, big hands, big legs, big heads, big breasts, and incredibly massive bodies. If it weren't for their watermelon breasts, the Australian women might have mistaken them for policemen. "Are you the white foreigner who was arrested in the village of Shuraf al-Banat?" asked the biggest policewoman. Irshad replied, "Yes, I am, ma'am." "So, you are the white foreign woman who stabbed the village chief." Irshad was silent. "Tonight, I'm going to make you kiss my feet without your clothes on, you dirty foreign street bitch." "I am not a prostitute. Please, ma'am, do not insult me with these inappropriate names." The policewoman shouted, "Get out, you bloody murderer." The officer grabbed Irshad's hand and took her out of the dark room. Then she shoved her into a police wagon. She sat near her. The deeply frightened foreign white woman knew that the angry Afghani policewoman meant evil to her, and this realization frightened her to death. Therefore, she started trembling with fear, horror, and panic. When Irshad got on the police wagon, she found that it was already crowded with the occupants brought from the dark room, which is like a bottomless pit. Irshad was forced to squeeze her body between two fat policewomen. The carriage left as soon as the white foreign detainee entered it. It emerged from the police station into the crowded streets of Kandahar city. The white woman has never been arrested before in Afghanistan and therefore has no idea where they will take her and what they will do to her except that the four big policewomen harbor evil for them. The circumstances in which the detained Australian white mother Irshad found herself did not allow her to think much about her 7 children. Meanwhile, the village chief, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed, was kept in the intensive care unit for 3 days before he was moved from critical condition to stable condition. A week later, he was discharged from the hospital. Instead of being arrested for attempting to rape the foreign white woman, he was allowed to go free and return to Sharaf al-Banat village as a great hero. He was received in his village with celebration and women singing with tambourines. The village elders slaughtered many cows and sheep, and the women prepared a big feast as a sign of dignity or karama with delicious Afghani dishes. Then all the inhabitants of the village were invited to free meals. Therefore, the notorious polygamist, rapist, and womanizer was treated like a triumphant hero returning from a deadly war against an infidel Christian woman, while his rape victim was sentenced to be stoned to death by the elders and thrown behind bars by the police for defending herself against her rapist. The Australian widow, Irshad al-Shamari, was imprisoned for 6 months in the most dangerous and filthy prison in Afghanistan. It is a maximum security prison called Kandahar Central Prison for rebellious Muslim women. The truth of the matter is that it's not even a prison. It is a heavily secured area where the worst criminals are imprisoned and hanged, beheaded, or stoned to death for adultery, prostitution, and murder. It did not have rooms or cells. It also has no dormitories. The female prisoners do not have a roof over their heads and therefore must somehow protect themselves from the scorching sun in the summer and the rain during the fall. They use their own clothing to protect their heads from the intense heat during the day and their bodies from the freezing cold at night. Besides, they must protect themselves from scorpions and snakes. Flies, mosquitoes, and lizards are the least of the many problems they have to face every day and every night. All these hardships are nothing compared to the imprisoned human beasts that the alien white woman has to fight to survive in the prison. If the prisoner could not fight for her food, she would starve to death. The law of nature, survival of the fittest, and the principle of Islamic jihad warfare, might is right and there is no difference between evil and good, are the only sayings that apply to life in Kandahar Central Women's Prison. The Australian widow, Irshad al-Shamari, somehow managed to survive in that hellish prison for 6 months until she was tried and convicted of her alleged crime of disobeying her legitimate Muslim husband, the leader of Sharaf al-Banat village, Al-Sheikh al-Homam Muhammad Ahmed, and attempting to kill him on their first wedding night. Therefore, the Sharia court in Kandahar city found her guilty of attempting to kill her husband, Al-Sheikh al-Jalil Muhammad Ahmed, the head of the so-called peaceful village of Sharaf al-Banat. The court that tried her did not allow her to appoint a lawyer because it was a Sharia court. The accused foreign white woman, Irshad al-Shamari, tried to prove to the Islamic court judge that she had never married the village leader, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed. However, the panel of the Sharia court claimed that it had a notarized legal marriage certificate proving that a halal Islamic marriage had taken place between her and her victim. Then the victim of the attempted rape told the court that the marriage certificate was forged and an act of fabrication by the village chief's relatives to acquit him of the crime of rape. Despite this, the Sharia court rejected her statement and sentenced her to 12 months in prison. Her single testimony was rejected because the Sharia considered the witness of one woman is inadmissible in court of law because as a woman her testimony is equal half of a man's testimony. She needed another woman to be witness with her to make her testimony acceptable as one testimony of a man. Accordingly, as a man her alleged husband's testimony was accepted and hers was rejected as a woman deficient in religion and intellect. And because the convicted foreign Australian widow, Irshad al-Shamari, had spent 6 months in pretrial detention, her sentence was reduced to half a year. In addition to a year's imprisonment, the Sharia court ordered the convicted white woman to be flogged with 53 lashes for exposing her nakedness in front of the villagers. When the beautiful, sexy blonde, white Australian woman is released from prison after 1 year, she goes half insane and loses half her weight. Most of the beauty of her face was gone and the charm of her sexy body also disappeared. During those 12 months, she lived in conditions that were not suitable for wild animals to survive. 75% of convicted female inmates die before half their prison term ends. The white foreign prisoner, Ershad, often starved whenever her food was looted by other violent female prisoners or Muslim terrorists. She was beaten every now and then by her fellow prisoners and female guards. Because she was the only white foreign woman in the prison, she became a victim of constant persecution and harassment by the local women inmates. At times, she was accused of being a spy for the West, and thus she was seriously beaten by fanatical Taliban Muslim women and Al-Qaeda female terrorists. She was called by very insulting names such as the infidel Christian, the unclean foreign woman, the uncircumcised woman, the white witch, the dirty bitch, the street prostitute, the unpurified adulteress, and the like of other obscene abuses that are often used against Westerners in the Muslim world. During her long imprisonment, the Australian woman, Irshad Al-Shamari, could not sleep at night because of the millions of mosquitoes. She was always getting sick because of the billions of flies in the day and the filthy place she shared with thousands of uneducated, unhygienic, and unhealthy Muslim women. It is a great divine miracle that the white Australian prisoner, Irshad Al-Shamari, was able to live and survive in that death concentration prison until she was released and became a free woman again.